Alright, hello everybody, my name is Derek Campbell. We're going to be making a pitch on Caterpillar right now. So Caterpillar is a global leader in manufacturing, construction and mining equipment. They're one of the most known companies for this sector, if you will. The main thing that we're looking at here is we want to diversify the industrial sector and also go into more domestic and safer stocks for our summer. So here we go, annotated stock chart. The two biggest things I wanted to talk about. So here, they beat earnings but did not beat on revenue. And then experts said that their revenue would be expected to decrease in the next coming quarters. And then here is about where the tariffs were, I believe. So consumer sentiment was decreasing heavily. So if we're looking at fundamental analysis here, as we can see, Caterpillar actually does very good here. You know, the only one that they don't win is PEG, and it's not very far from AGCO. AGCO is another farming machinery company. So for price sales, both of these AGCO wins, but in the slide before we saw that AGCO did not have the best performance. Beta, CAT's beta is a little higher than where I want it to be right now, but it's still not in a bad spot. For operating margin and profit margin, both of these are dominated by Caterpillar, which I really like. ROA and ROE, same thing here, Caterpillar wins. For dividend, they do have a decent dividend, so we will be making a little bit of money off of that. So annual report, the biggest thing I wanted to talk about from the annual report was their region sales. So over half of their sales were in America, and that is really important to me because, like I said, we're trying to find more safe stocks, domestic stocks for whenever the 90-day pause ends. So after that, there was Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. That was the second highest region, which I don't believe they got hit too hard by tariffs whatsoever after the first Liberation Day. So, and then after that is Asia Pacific, which is really good that they're third in my opinion because that means that they're not the highest amount of sales from Caterpillar whatsoever. Alright, so here we go. We got historical earnings per share. As we can see, you know, it has this really big jump right here. I wasn't quite sure on why that was, but other than that, it looks pretty decent. Train tracks, not bad at all. And then total debt, in my opinion, doesn't really matter too much, but it doesn't look bad whatsoever. Debt to capital, it's above the industry average, but below competitors that we looked at before. And then for analyst opinions, we see lots of holds and buys, but I feel like we're in more of a buy situation rather than these people based on our sector, or not our sector, our fund and where we're looking at going. So for drivers and threats, biggest driver for me is mainly domestic. They're often a very reliable company, and their financials do look pretty good compared to competitors. And then for threats, a lot of their parts are imported, I believe, from Asian countries like China and Taiwan, I believe. Consumer spending is decreasing, as we will see from Schaefer later. He's doing John Deere, which is a similar company, and they're having the same sort of problems that consumers aren't necessarily buying as much as where they were. And we will see a hit on revenue, but I don't think it will impact the stocks too much. And for a threat, 2/5 of the sales are international, so once the 90-day pause ends, that could get interesting there, but I feel like it's still fine because over half of the sales are domestic. So overall, I think we should buy. Where we want to get the cash from, that is something that the class is going to have to decide on. I believe we have, how much do we decide? $1,800 in cash right now? So we could either shave out of something else or just not buy in general if you guys do not like this stock. But I think that's something that we would have to wait till Tuesday to decide on.
Before I turn it off, does anyone have any questions or comments?
Is there a reason that you chose both of your competitors to be agricultural companies when CAT trying to specialize in the industrial company?
What do you mean? Like they're both competitors. Why did we pick that?
No, so you chose CNH, which is an agricultural machinery company, and you chose the AGR, which is also an agricultural machinery company.
So the thing is that Schaefer, he started his pitch first, and he already compared John Deere and Caterpillar. So I pretty much just wanted to change that and.
Well, John Deere is also an agricultural company.
Yeah, but when I looked up competitors to John Deere, and the top one was
Okay.
even though one is they're like similar. I mean, I know they're different like industries, but
Yeah, they're
similar
entirely different
but-
industries. It's just what my question is.
So you're saying why did we decide to compare those two these stocks?
Yeah, just particularly those stocks. If it's just so looked it up and then the top competitors, that's fine. That makes sense.
Yeah, I would say it was mostly that, but also like for Caterpillar's industry, I feel like there's not that many other bigger stocks that would be worth comparing it to. If you see what I mean there. Nick, did you have a question? Peter,
I have another question.
what's your
How do you feel about CAT's like analyst ratings and like some of the lack of confidence that Exacts has in them?
So for that, I think. So I mean, I don't necessarily love that, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because those are just looking at like if you're an everyday person looking to just put some money into stocks. I think for our situation where we're trying to go more domestic, go a little safer, where we won't necessarily lose money over the summer while we can't be meeting as much. I think it's important that we get into a domestic stock like Caterpillar. And also our industrials, I think we need to diversify just a little bit more, just add a little bit.
You mentioned the beta being concerning. Just with like over the summer, like can you talk about how like we should be impacted by that, or like how that could be, and like something you're concerned about?
Could you go to my stock chart, please? So one thing I do like about where we are at with this, so go to full screen, please. So as we can see, there was this big drop right here. I like that we're not buying at a high like we tend to always do. And it seems like it has a decent amount of weight behind it, so I feel like we should be able to at least get a little bit out of this. I think the weight behind it's gonna help it go back up to where it was. I mean, I don't think it'll be just as high where it was around in the start of the year, because like I said, the consumers aren't necessarily buying as much, but I still feel like the beta will help it push forward a lot more, and I don't see it going down much more from here. Here.
Did you do any reading into like their legal situation and how often they get sued?
I do know that they do get sued a decent bit. Isn't it mostly monopolies?
It's a mix between like antitrust suits, antitrust issues, and then like they get a lot of just worker comp issues.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like as we can see through the last year, I don't know how many times they've necessarily had suits come up from in that time period, but as we can see, the stock necessarily hasn't taken much of a hit from it. Like these two, I figured were the two biggest points of drops, and there wasn't really anything else that really impacted the stock to drop from suits. Peter.
Is there anything? Did you know anything about in like December there was a pretty big hedge fund sell off of Caterpillar?
Oh, I did not do that. No.
It's not that big a deal. I mean, it's been what 5 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in December, actually, if we look at it, you can see this drop here, but then it went right back up.
Yeah, that drop is the sell off.
Yeah.
Is that something that maybe you need to look at between now and Tuesday for?
I can look into it.
No.
And can I just need a clarifying answer. You said that you considered Caterpillar as an agricultural company?
They do agriculture and mining equipment.
Okay, because
So it's both.
as somebody who has a background in agriculture,
Yeah, they're not as big in the
I think they're more as
agriculture.
big construction than
Yeah, they're
ag.
more in construction and mining rather than agriculture, but they are still
Okay.
in agriculture.
Just wanted to check.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Can we have another round of applause? And I'm going to